Hey guys, I'm Carly and I'm going to be sharing my strategy that I picked for today with you guys. In the case of this strategy, it's a little difficult to really show you how it could be done in a classroom, as my strategy is interactive read aloud, and those are more done in a whole class group setting, and I currently do not have a whole class to kind of model this for you. So I do want to address that first off, but I do want to model what, as a teacher, I would do when using this strategy in the classroom, so you guys get an idea of what it entails, what it is, and how it could be used in the classroom. So as I said, I am doing the interactive read aloud, and what is an interactive read aloud? Well, this is a whole group instructional context where you read aloud a selective text to the whole class, and you're gonna pause and selecting times throughout the text to articulate thoughts and questions that the students may have. And this can be done really any way. You can just have students raise their hand like, oh, I want to answer this question, or I have a thought about the story. Or you can get creative and, use a ball you can toss around the room and give it some more fun feel to it. But it really is it's really meant to allow the students to really think about, talk about, and respond to the text in a way that they may not get just reading the text themselves. It makes it a little more fun. They also really get to process the language in the text when you're reading it to them, and then picking stopping points that they may not catch as important, but as the teacher, that's important. They get to discuss that with one another and with the teacher. They get to share their ideas and the meaning of the text with the class as well, and it really is to build a community in the classroom and change the way they think about reading. So really, how can this be used in the classroom? Well, if it were me, I would select a text that goes along with a standard that can be used really in any content area. It can be used in language arts, reading, math, science, social studies, anything you can really think of that may need students to read something and understand it better and comprehension-wise. So obviously with this type of strategy, you want your classroom to be comfortable. You want your kids to feel safe sharing their ideas and their thoughts during a text. You can do it in a reading circle. You can do it in their desks and have them in small groups where they can do centers during this time and have different types of discussion questions that they look at and share with one another. You can do think, pair, share, which is also another strategy, and have them share back with you or with the whole class. But for an example I wanted to use that I would do in the classroom is a standard focusing on different points of views in a story. So I did select a text already, and I had selected a text most of you probably are very familiar with, which is The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, by A. Wolf. I chose this because most kids know the story of the Three Little Pigs. They've heard it in passing, they've been told it by parents, It's a very common story that most people just know. But this story gives them a different perspective, and prior to this, obviously I printed it out. In the classroom I'd have an actual hard copy of the book, but I had underlined areas where I would want to stop that I felt were of great importance to the text. But to prepare for this, obviously you'd begin reading the story, and have students think about the story while they're listening. You could provide a bubble map and where they just jot down ideas of what they feel is important. Obviously you need to have questions prepared in the story, because you can't just come up with them on the fly. You need to plan this very well, and you pick certain stopping points for the discussion. For example, what differences have you noticed from this story compared to the original? That could be brought up at any point in the story. In the beginning, what do you think may happen in the story that maybe didn't happen in the original story? It allows them to kind of get their juices flowing and just think about it. It's a great essential question. But you should really allow students to share with one another, and ask questions and thoughts and share their ideas. The teacher can call on students. The teacher can, like I said, make it fun and toss the ball around. Most kids don't really like the popsicle stick, but that's also a good idea to get all your kids involved in the process. But I did pick points of the story that I wanted to share with you. Obviously, most of you should have heard this story at some point. I did highlight areas where it talks about the big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The idea of the big bad wolf is all wrong. So I highlighted that, and I would stop and share with them and ask them a question. Why do you think this idea of the big bad wolf is all wrong? What are your thoughts? What do you think would lead to the conclusion that it's wrong? And then I also highlighted areas in the story that were different. So when he says the real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar, which he does right here on page 3, I would ask, what do you think happened with this sneeze and a cup of sugar? Did he smell the cup of sugar and sneeze? Did he need a cup of sugar and sneeze? Some kids may not know. But, it's elementary school. You're going to get many answers that are interesting, and they can keep that in the back of their head. I also found a spot where it says, can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind would build a house out of straw? Talking about the first pig that built his house out of straw. And this one, I came up with a question that would give them a little more time to be a little sarcastic, but I asked, now, would you build a house out of straw? What problems could arise of building a house out of straw? This allows them to think about what a house is made out of. It gives them that time to make personal connections to the story that, my house isn't built out of straw, so that wouldn't be right. Why would they build a house out of straw? And they can see the problem of building a house out of a straw. When he sneezes, of course it would blow down. I also noticed a difference when the original story, it says he huffed, he puffed, and blew the house down. But in this case, the story says, well, I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed a great sneeze. This would be a great point to stop and ask them, what differences do you notice? Like, do you see any differences? Is there anything that differs from the original story? And maybe they catch on to it, maybe they don't. But that's a good point where you can see who's following along and understanding the difference in the story. I also found another difference when the second pig, the one that built his house out of wood, he asked him, Mr. Pig, are you in? And he yelled back, go away, wolf, you can't come in, I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin. But in the original story it says, you can't come in, not on the hairs on my chinny chin chin. So there's a difference of shaving and he can't come in. So that difference, they may not pick up on it, but it's a difference that could be important to them to understand differences of point of view for that particular standard. I also felt in this story there weren't a great deal of stopping points, but at the end it says, that's it, the real story was, I was framed. Now, I asked, do you think he was really framed? Why? What textual evidence have you found in the story or heard from me reading it to you that you believed he was framed? Many of them can just be like, I don't think he was framed. I think that he actually did do it. Like, I don't agree with this story. And they're allowed to have those differences of opinion with you, and it invites for a classroom discussion to have the Socratic seminar method at that point and share their thoughts and build off of one another. It also can be made into centers, like I said before, and provide them multiple ways. You could also do it student-led if you really wanted to. I would prefer me reading the story and then them coming back and reevaluating the story in groups and have them reread it again and discuss, fill out sheets of questions, or even just seeing them discuss it will allow you to have that interactive read aloud at the same time. But it's a great way to get the students to really join together and think as a collective whole unit than just you read the story, they answer some questions. It makes it more fun, more interesting, more engaging. It's something that I see done a lot, actually, in elementary schools. It's a great strategy. I really liked in researching it and seeing how it's truly done. It really can be done in any content area, anything that has a story, anything that's different, any standard. It just takes time to plan it out and use it in the classroom. But I hope this helps you guys out, and I hope you enjoyed learning this strategy with me. Thanks.